Strange apparitions in the woods, mysterious phone numbers discovered, terrifying real-life cases perfectly recreated, and enigmas that for years kept millions of players trapped in a real maze with no way out. Grand Theft Auto 5 became the absolute king of mysteries. The game that took those classic creepypastas born in GTA San Andreas and the earlier titles of the saga to a whole new level. It became the meeting point between curiosity, paranoia, and the collective imagination of an entire community. Now, with GTA 5 reaching the end of its cycle as the last great active title of the franchise and preparing to take its place among the classics, it's time to look back. In this video, we're not only going to revisit the most iconic mysteries, but also give them a final explanation, solving those enigmas that were left hanging, uncovering the secrets that were never fully understood within the game, and preparing ourselves for what's coming next. Because GTA 6 is very close, and if we pay attention, in its first trailer we've already seen familiar faces that make us think the mysteries are far from over in the Grand Theft Auto saga. I'm warning you, we're not ready. A single map found in a Grand Theft Auto 5 barbershop sparked an entire mystery that affects even the context of the entire Grand Theft Auto universe and its worlds. In this map, players noticed that the coastlines of most countries and continents had a slightly different shape from those in reality. The continents appeared much smaller, as if sea levels had risen significantly. Soon, the community came up with its own theories, and in a way you could say they gave an explanation to one of the biggest enigmas of the Grand Theft Auto saga. Why are the world's most important cities such small islands? Of course, we all know the technical explanation behind it, but from a lore perspective, this mystery gave birth to a rather interesting theory. Grand Theft Auto would be set in a universe where sea levels are much higher than in our reality. This rise in the ocean is what would make all the GTA cities completely surrounded by water and impossible to connect by land, even though all of them are supposedly located on the American continent. Although this theory might seem to make sense, it's highly unlikely that this was Rockstar's intention with the map, since nowhere else in the series is there any mention of such a phenomenon that would have flooded large parts of the world at some point in the past. Whatever the case, the intention behind this map remains a complete mystery. With the arrival of Grand Theft Auto 5 to the new generation, players discovered a very strange phone number with an odd function. When the player dialed this number, a small explosion occurred right above the character's head. After that, the player's phone interface would turn gray and the wallpaper would become completely black. Although no one knows the real purpose of this event, data miners found a name hidden in the game's code: Ojasot. Many people believed it was related to a missing or secret mission that somehow needed to be activated through this event. However, there is no such mission called Ojasot, and we have absolutely no information about it, which could mean it was cut content that somehow made its way into the final version of the game during its port to PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. During Dom's random events, we'll encounter a dog that warns us whenever this character is in danger. Strangely, Franklin seems to be able to talk to the dog, and even more surprisingly, he understands it perfectly, something that baffles him completely. Mysteriously, this Labrador Retriever always disappears right after Franklin meets Dom. In every single encounter, only Franklin sees the dog, while Dom always looks confused and asks, "What dog?" making it clear that this animal isn't Dom's pet, yet it's always near him. The missions never explain the true nature of this unsettling encounter, and everything simply ends with the mystery left on the table. However, if we explore the in-game internet, there is a website that some players believe holds the explanation behind this eerie phenomenon. On this site, we're invited to play God, creating natural disasters and accidents through images. The most disturbing part is when we realize that the dog that loses his life along with his family in a car accident shown on that page looks exactly like the one Franklin sees. And even more, the location of the accident looks very similar to the place of the first encounter. This would confirm that the mysterious dog capable of communicating with Franklin is in fact a ghost, a spirit of a dog that died in an accident and somehow chose to protect Dom for reasons unknown. The Eternal Night, or the day that never comes, is an extremely rare and eerie phenomenon reported by some players in the early versions of the game. Those affected said that after sunset, the night lasted for a full 24 hours and even completed up to 3 moon cycles across the sky. Beyond the mystery it created in the community, it's most likely that this was nothing more than a strange bug that has already been fixed. Still, mystery hunters never lose hope, always dreaming that one day the sun might simply fail to rise. In the first versions of the game for PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360, some players claim to see the face of the devil himself hidden within certain textures of the game. These sightings happened in all kinds of elements, from the sea foam on the water to walls and even vehicles. People swore they were seeing terrifying faces or shapes straight from hell. The truth, however, is far less sinister. Rockstar never intended to create any mystery around this. The effect occurred because some textures were mirrored and repeated. This is a common technique used to avoid visible seams when applying textures, but when you mirror an image over itself, the human brain tends to perceive familiar shapes, often faces. This psychological effect is known as pareidolia, a human tendency to find recognizable patterns when looking at random or unclear visual data. This optical illusion, combined with the tricks of our own minds, created a genuinely creepy mystery in the early versions of Grand Theft Auto 5. And even today, it's still possible to find some of those old textures hidden in certain parts of the current version. On one of the streets of Vinewood Hills, you can find graffiti showing the number 1807 with a small arrow right beneath it. If you follow that arrow, it points directly toward a house. At first glance, the place seems perfectly normal. But if you go around to the backyard at night, you'll notice something strange. There are far more people there than in any other nearby mansion, as if a party or a social gathering was happening. So far, nothing unusual, except that every single one of these people dies in a very strange way. A simple push or the slightest contact with the player is enough to make them drop dead, even before hitting the ground, as if their lives were literally hanging by a thread. When this happens, the rest of the guests stand completely frozen, horrified by what they've just seen. But what's the truth behind this chilling event? This murder house has been directly linked to the real-life Charles Manson murders, serving as a clear reference to the infamous events that took place in a house that looks strikingly similar to the one in the game. The graffiti number 1807 with the little arrow might also be a reference to this case, representing the 18 members of Manson's cult and the 7 people convicted for what happened that night. In any case, one thing is certain, this is no glitch. What you're seeing is from the latest version of Grand Theft Auto 5 enhanced on PC, which is actually the 4th re-release of the game, and the event still hasn't been removed or altered. Even more convincing, the nearby NPCs react in unique scripted ways, as if the entire event were intentionally programmed to unfold exactly as it does on screen. Just a few streets further west, we can find another even stranger house, the Bleeding House. This mansion in Vinewood seems completely normal until we notice something truly bizarre. If you shoot at this specific window, the glass will splatter blood. While this may sound extremely strange, it could easily be explained as a visual glitch. However, if we head to the back of the property, there's another window that appears to have bloodstains baked into its texture, as if a horrifying scene had taken place inside. And to make things even more unsettling, remember that once again we're seeing this in Grand Theft Auto 5 Enhanced on PC, the game's 4th re-release, and this so-called bug still exists after all these years. It's caught the attention of the community and has been considered one of the long-standing mysteries that surely, at some point during these 12 years, must have reached Rockstar's ears. The green glow was a strange phenomenon seen in the early versions of Grand Theft Auto 5 on PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360. This odd light could be spotted between 7 PM and 7 AM on the beach closest to the Humane Labs. Although the true nature of the glow remains unknown, it was most likely a visual glitch since it was later fixed in newer versions of the game and can no longer be seen. However, it's very strange because in that exact direction there is nothing, not even far away, that could logically be causing that glow. The only certain thing about this event is that we'll probably never know if it was a real mystery or just a harmless bug that caught the community's imagination. You've surely passed by this building hundreds, if not thousands of times, but maybe you've never stopped to learn its background or the mysteries it hides. The Bishop's WTF is a museum dedicated to bizarre or curious events that supposedly happened around the world. A parody of a real-life business called Ripley's Believe It or Not. Even though it doesn't play any significant role in the game and mostly serves as background detail for Los Santos, we can read some interesting context on the signs posted on its walls. These posters mention an exhibition featuring 2 very strange creatures called the Cake and the Fisheye. The Cake was described as a hybrid creature, half cow and half snake, while the Fisheye was said to be a creature with a fishtail and 1 large eye as its head. Of course, the community searched everywhere for these creatures without success, since the reality is that the exhibition is completely fake. These beings don't exist, They're simply fictional displays meant to attract tourists, and as expected, no models or files of such creatures were ever found within the game's code. The presence of monkeys in Grand Theft Auto 5 is a real mystery. Although the animal model and animations do exist in the game, we can't naturally encounter them in the open world. These animals are quite special because they only appear during two moments. First, in the mission Did Somebody Say Yoga, where we can see them in the alley when Michael is about to be abducted by the UFO, and second, during the Humane Labs raid, where we can see the monkeys locked in cages inside the facility. Even though there's no clear explanation for their mysterious inclusion in the game, it's strange to think about how they appear in that alley right before an extraterrestrial event takes place, almost as if their presence and the mystery go hand in hand. The alien presence in Grand Theft Auto 5 goes far beyond what we ever saw in any previous game of the saga. These creatures actually exist within the game. They even play a small role in the story itself. However, the disappointing truth is that they're not really aliens. If you think about it, the alien we know from Grand Theft Auto 5 is nothing more than a costume used in the film studio sets. So it would be quite strange that a costume designed by humans for shooting movies would perfectly match the anatomy of real extraterrestrial beings. But then what about the frozen alien in North Yankton, Michael's abduction, and the alien invasion in the square? Well, those events can actually be explained if we consider one thing. Michael is obsessed with movies. If those same alien suits are used in the Vinewood film studios and Michael has spent his life watching movies that feature them, then it's easy to imagine that his mind was deeply influenced by those images. That's why he hallucinates these creatures when his son gives him those magic substances, and again when he smokes the Epsilon Trax joints. Every alien encounter in the game happens after consuming a hallucinogen, and always with the same character, the one who's obsessed with movies. Trevor, for instance, sees clowns instead, and Franklin, he doesn't see anything at all. As convincing as this explanation may sound, there's still no definitive way to disprove the frozen alien in North Yankton. Its model is slightly different from the movie costume, which opens another possibility, that in the Grand Theft Auto 5 universe, humanity already knows about these beings and used their appearance to design realistic alien suits for movies. Or maybe it's just leftover movie props from a forgotten North Yankton film set. There are several visible UFOs in Grand Theft Auto 5, but the harsh truth is that none of the ones flying in the sky are truly extraterrestrial. Listing them, we have the UFO on Mount Chiliad, the UFO in the desert, and the black UFO over Fort Zancudo. But none of these actually belong to aliens. We know this because the first two clearly show FIB logos on their surfaces. In fact, the UFO on Mount Chiliad isn't even real, it's a hologram with an unknown purpose. That hologram could actually be projecting the same UFO seen in the desert, which means there is really only one craft, a human-made Phoebe spacecraft using advanced technology. But why does a government agency have flying saucers? That's where the only real extraterrestrial UFO in the game comes in. Deep beneath the ocean, in the northern part of the map, there's a sunken UFO identical to the other two, with one key difference: it has no FIB markings. Its position suggests that it probably crashed or was shot down by the military base, causing it to sink in that location. This might be what Omega saw, and the spaceship parts he asked us to find could be fragments that broke off as it traveled across the map before crashing. The FIB likely recovered the alien technology and the bodies of its occupants, storing them safely inside a secret bunker in Fort Zancudo to study and replicate their technology. That's how the FIB created a copy of the alien ship, while the military developed their own modified version, focused on stealth and surveillance across San Andreas. So if aliens ever did arrive on Earth in the Grand Theft Auto universe, humanity made sure to deal with them, one way or another. The black smoke, also known as the phantoms, are strange ghost-like apparitions seen in a particular area of the map. Players notice dark moving clouds floating mysteriously in the air around the zone. Their purpose remains a total mystery, though some believe it could simply be another glitch. Yet if that's true, it's one that somehow survived every patch and re-release the game has ever had. Either way, the area already feels creepy enough at certain hours, and the presence of this dark moving smoke only makes being there at night even more unsettling. The ghost of Mount Gordo is perhaps the most famous mystery in the entire game. Part of its popularity comes from how easy it is to witness. Unlike other secrets that require 100% story completion, this one only needs you to visit a specific location between 11 PM and midnight. During that single hour, a ghostly figure appears at the edge of the cliff. A woman with long black hair dressed in white, translucent and terrifyingly motionless, staring straight ahead with a haunting expression. But who was this woman and why does she appear here? Her name was Jolene Evans, the wife of Jock Cranley. Back in the 1980s, Jock was a famous stuntman and TV personality. He wanted to move to Los Santos to further his career, a decision his wife strongly opposed. One day while hiking together in the mountains, Jock took advantage of the solitude and silence of the wilderness and pushed Jolene off a cliff, ending her life to remove what he saw as an obstacle to his fame. Authorities could never prove he was responsible, so he never paid for what he did. In the current timeline of the game, Jock Cranley is now a conservative candidate for governor of the state of San Andreas. Every night, the ghost of Jolene appears again on the cliff, writing her name in blood on the rocks from which she was pushed to her death. Starting from the game's second re-release on PlayStation 4 and Xbox One, players were finally able to enter the abandoned mine. And what they found inside was shocking. There, deep within the tunnels, lay a mummified body that seemed to have been there for decades. Next to it, a film reel labeled Richard Majestic could be found, a clue that would connect this discovery to a much larger story. The body belonged to a man named Isaac, who was murdered by Fred Quincy, a figure often compared to the Walt Disney of the Grand Theft Auto universe. A letter dated August 14, 1949 confirms the details of what happened. Isaac had produced an animated film without much care or effort, something Fred took as an act of betrayal since he had specifically warned him not to. Isaac had also stolen segments from other films owned by Fred, which became the last straw and ultimately cost him his life. 2 years later, Fred's secretaries, who knew the whole truth and was blackmailing him to get what she wanted, also met the same fate. All of this was part of a new side mission added to the game in that re-release, and once completed, it unlocked 2 new camera filters as a reward. Bigfoot has always been one of the most famous legends in the forests of the Grand Theft Auto series, and once again in Grand Theft Auto 5, the creature materialized as a full-fledged mystery, appearing in 2 missions. The first appearance happens during the mission Predator, where we can spot Bigfoot through the sniper rifle's thermal scope. Later, he appears again in a strange and chaotic side mission titled The Last One, in which Franklin meets a hunter who claims he's been chasing the creature for 9 years. That number isn't random. It's actually a direct reference to San Andreas, since the mission takes place in 2013, exactly 9 years after the release of Grand Theft Auto San Andreas, though not in the same year as its story setting. During this mission, Franklin tracks and chases the mysterious creature, only to eventually discover that it's just a man wearing a Bigfoot costume. The Altruists are a strange cult made up entirely of elderly men, baby boomers who believe that every generation born after theirs is responsible for all of the world's problems. All the members hate and reject modern technology, yet ironically they drive vehicles and even have a website written in Morse code. Yeah, the irony is strong with these guys. Their camp is bizarre for many reasons, not only because most of them walk around half naked, but also because their settlement has been directly linked to the Mount Chiliad mystery and the supposed jetpack due to the strange symbols painted all over their buildings. During the Grand Theft Auto 5 story, Trevor can bring different random event characters to this camp, where the cult performs rituals and sacrifices them in exchange for money. However, in the end, it turns out to be a trap because Trevor himself eventually becomes the sacrifice. Near the lighthouse, there's a small grave located on top of a mountain. Many content creators have linked this grave to the protagonist of Grand Theft Auto San Andreas, CJ, completely out of nowhere. But in reality, the grave most likely belongs to Ursula's mother. Ursula is a very strange hitchhiker we meet during a random event, and it doesn't take long to realize that she's completely unhinged. Her mother mistreated her, gave her a terrible childhood, and everything seems to point to Ursula eventually ending her mother's life, as well as the gardener's. Given how close the grave is to her house, it makes perfect sense that this would be the resting place of her mother, not the cursed protagonist of another GTA universe. There is a series of mysterious markings in the Gran Senora Desert that you might not know about. These markings are a set of red arrows that form a trail the player can follow. Many of these arrows are painted on already strange structures covered in alien graffiti. Completing the trail is quite difficult, but if you follow it to the end, all the arrows line up perfectly, each one pointing to the next, until the final arrow leads to another red arrow painted on the wall of the liquor store in front of Trevor's house. This has led the community to believe that it's the continuation of the trail, and since it also has a red arrow, following it takes you to another arrow, the one at the abandoned motel. While it's a fun little Easter egg, none of it really leads to anything meaningful. No secret, no reward, no hidden treasure, just the old abandoned motel, which is indeed an important location tied to many of the game's myths and mysteries. The clowns are strange entities that exist only inside Trevor Phillips' mind. Even though their models and their van exist within the game files, they can only appear in free mode using mods. Their official appearance happens during the mission Grassroots, where Trevor, just like Michael, must face his greatest fear while under the influence of the magic substances. For him, that fear takes the form of killer clowns. Leonora Johnson was a young actress and model born in 1952. The film director Peter Dreyfuss ended her life in 1975 in the most horrific way possible. To put it lightly, and so YouTube doesn't get mad, he dismembered her, rearranged her limbs, took photos, and kept a few souvenirs. He later mailed those photos to her family on the anniversaries of the crime. The in-game website dedicated to this case tells the entire story and even shows the gruesome images of what happened. During the events of Grand Theft Auto 5, the player must find 50 scraps of a letter scattered throughout the map. Once all 50 are collected, we can read Dreyfuss' full confession. A letter he wrote to David Richards, father of Solomon Richards, who was then in charge of the Richards Majestic movie studios. After collecting all the letter scraps and discovering the truth, Franklin can finally bring justice by tracking down Dreyfuss and making him pay for what he did nearly 40 years ago. Myrtle Abrahams was born in 1947 and lived in Sandy Shores in Blaine County. Over time, he developed a disturbing obsession with the number 8. In December 1999, he began what would become known as the Infinity Murders. He murdered 8 male joggers and buried their bodies in secret locations throughout the state of San Andreas. Although he was captured and imprisoned in Bolingbroke Penitentiary, he never confessed to the crimes. The map is filled with clues about his actions. In his burnt down house in Sandy Shores, you can find messages scrolled on the walls with phrases like "there will be 8," referring to his victims, or "8 is just infinity stood upright." These were thoughts he wrote in solitude inside his twisted mind. Near Sandy Shores, there are also painted rocks bearing strange phrases that hint at his killings. 1 is done, 2 was fun, 3 tried to run, 4 called mom, 5's not alive, 6 is Nick, 7's in heaven, 8 won't wait, and it ends with a chilling statement saying that they might find and capture him, but they would never find his victims, even though he left clues behind to lead them there. Inside the prison, there are also writings on the walls made by Abrahams himself, warning that one day he would return, that his death wasn't the end, and leaving more cryptic messages like "where water meets land and fire once spewed forth, there the infinite 8 shall stay until I return." Merle Abrahams died in December 2004 while awaiting trial, and the bodies of his 8 victims were never found. The Fort Zancudo bunker kept mystery hunters busy for years as players tried to figure out how to access its mysterious interior. This small building located within the military base has an elevator, and according to the display screen, it leads to an underground level. This suggested that beneath Fort Zancudo there might be some kind of secret facility or bunker, possibly containing the long-awaited rewards tied to the great Mount Chiliad mystery. On top of that, strange rotating lights could be seen above the building, and if the player climbed onto the roof, a powerful beam of light appeared, similar to the one UFOs emit during abductions. This place became one of the most studied locations by mystery-focused content creators of the time. Back then, many YouTubers and investigators dedicated their entire channels to exploring Fort Zancudo, doing everything possible to infiltrate the base undetected and reach that mysterious bunker. Some of them even managed to discover blind spots within the military complex, areas where players could move freely without triggering a wanted level. Imagine finding gray zones inside one of the most heavily guarded facilities in the entire world. In the end though, none of those efforts paid off. The Fort Zancudo bunker was eventually revealed years later as part of a Halloween update in GTA Online. There we're given a clear implication that all the alien technology recovered by the government is what made it possible to create the flying vehicles and laser weapons that have since appeared in GTA Online. The Mount Chiliad mystery is the greatest enigma in Grand Theft Auto 5. A mystery that connects many of the strange phenomena we've talked about throughout this video, bringing them all together in one single place: Mount Chiliad. It all began with a strange mural painted on one of the walls inside the cable car station. From that single image, players started to speculate that there was a hidden vehicle in the game, the legendary jetpack. Today, that might sound like a simple or even silly theory, especially when you think about the insane number of vehicles now available in GTA Online. But back then, when the fighter jet from the military base was the most impressive thing you could fly in GTA 5, the idea of a jetpack like the one from San Andreas felt like chasing the impossible. The entire community came together to try and solve the puzzle. People talked about alien eggs, secret underground facilities beneath the mountains, mysterious symbols, and hidden meanings. Some thought it was tied to extraterrestrial life, others believed it it was a government conspiracy, and a few even connected it to divine or spiritual themes. But no matter how deep the theories went, no one ever found a definitive answer. As time went on, the Mount Chiliad mystery transformed from being a shared passion of the whole community to becoming an obsession for a few who refused to let it go. Deep down, they knew they had spent years of their lives trying to decipher a simple drawing on a wall. When the game finally came to PC, players combed through every single file, and that's when our worst suspicion was confirmed. The solution didn't exist. Everything pointed to the mystery being part of cut content, perhaps a cancelled story, DLC, or a subplot that Rockstar never finished. A puzzle deliberately left unsolved to keep players trapped in it. The magnitude of this mystery was such that some players actually lost their minds over it. Without naming anyone, there were people who went way too far, especially within the Spanish-speaking community, where one particular creator betrayed his friends, created fake solutions using mods, and even scammed his own followers by selling exclusive answers through memberships and Patreon. He even went as far as to hire Ned Luke, the actor who plays Michael, to record a personalized video saying that he had solved the mystery because after all, Rockstar actors sometimes sell these custom messages, and if you pay them, they'll say whatever you ask. To this day, that same person keeps claiming he has a real contact with Rockstar, that the company approved his solution as the official one, and that Rockstar won't release GTA 6 until players accept his version. And if that wasn't enough, he now spends his free time obsessively harassing the very people who were once his friends and collaborators. But leaving behind the madness and those who fed it, what truly matters is what the Mount Chiliad mystery represented. Because those simple drawings scattered across a video game map didn't just create theories, they created community. They built connections, they brought together thousands of people who poured their time, curiosity, and passion into deciphering something that never really existed. But in the process, they gained something far more valuable. Real friendships, unforgettable memories, and moments that still live on today. Because in the end, the real reward of the mystery was never the jetpack hidden on the mountaintop. If we had found it, we would have gotten bored of it within a week. The real reward was everything we lived while searching for it. The laughter, the late nights, the conversations, and the friendships formed along the way. The prize wasn't the jetpack, it was us, the people we met, and the memories that stayed forever in our hearts. And if, like me, this incredible game introduced you to people who are now an important part of your life, send them this video, because Grand Theft Auto 5 may be coming to an end, but we'll always have the friends we made along the way, and the everlasting memories of what Grand Theft Auto 5 and its mysteries meant to an entire generation.